So Nerdy Steve here, and today we will be featuring a Grixis control deck and Explorer. The link to the list is in the description below. I'm going to talk about the cards and the general plan of the deck, and then we'll play a couple of games. So, let's go. So this deck, what it wants to do early on and ideally is trade 1-for-1 with your opponent, either with Thoughtseize or your creature removal, and then eventually land either a Chandra or Nicol Bolas, either of them, to generate card advantage over time, so your 1-for-1 removal can still compete with your opponent's cards, but then eventually you have the chance and opportunity to overwhelm them with what you're drawing. So, how do we get there? So first, I want to talk about, let's just go in order, because why not? So Fatal Push and Heartless Act are, I think, like the instant speed removal with this deck and kind of Kolaghan's command, so they're all very similar. But we also have Bloodtithe Harvester as creature removal as well, and potentially Stomp. So it's a lot of creature removal. And what we want to do with those cards is, right, we want to be able to stop our opponent's aggressive strategies, so mono red, angels, gruel, whatever is going on, to we want to kill those creatures so we aren't put under a lot of pressure early game. And that's kind of what these are, and these are all very redundant and powerful. And Bloodtithe Harvester is really, really good because what Blood does in all matchups, but in this specific deck, is Blood can always loot away cards you don't need to find something you do. And obviously that makes sense because why would you discard a card if you don't want a better card? But in control matchups, a lot of the time, or in control decks, if your opponent doesn't have a lot of creatures or isn't a creature heavy deck, maybe they are also another control deck or a combo deck, you might not need Fatal Push. And so you can blood away the cards you don't need to try and get something you want. And that's just very, very important part of why Bloodtithe Harvester is good in this stuff. It's also against decks that don't have creatures. It is a 3-2 on turn 2. And that can put a lot of pressure on your opponent's life total and planeswalkers, right? A lot of times, you, specifically in best of one, but it also happens in best of three, but you have a sideboard to help that. But a lot of times in best of one, you want cards to be better against a wider range of decks when possible because you don't want them to always be dead. And Bloodtithe Harvester has a really good spot in aggressive matchups and in control matchups as well because, whereas Heartless Act is really, really bad in against certain control decks, Bloodtithe Harvester can give you a threat, which comes out very early, and can loot away the useless Heartless Act, right? And so it serves a lot of purpose there. And then I'm going to go back to Thoughtseize, which is in general very, very good in almost any matchup. And it's really, really good in this type of control deck, right? Because you can Thoughtseize away very specific problems that are going to prevent you from being able to reach that late game where you're going to do so well. So it can, kill problematic creatures that maybe your removal isn't equipped to handle right now against certain combo decks, right? You can get away a combo piece to hopefully bide you a little more time. Or, you can remove a planeswalker against a control deck or counter magic. So it does a lot of work and it's really, really good here. Because also we don't have a lot of stuff to do on turn 1 or turn 2. And having something that we can use our mana on is going to be really, really valuable. And so I brought up Bonecrusher Giant briefly before, but it goes without saying Bonecrusher Giant is an amazing card. Just like Bloodtithe Harvester, it is removal, and then it's also a very, very resilient and very quick threat. A 4-3 can kill people very, very quickly. It pressures planeswalkers with Stomp and itself. It's just very, very good and kind of is a 2-for-1 card, which this deck really, really wants to do. Part of reaching that mid to late game, right, is generating that card advantage over time, and Bonecrusher Giant helps you there. Then we also have Graveyard Trespasser, which It does a lot of interesting things here. So this is Graveyard Trespasser is more of a finisher than anything else in this deck. And what I mean by that is it's not really a control card. It is a little disruptive against maybe other graveyard decks, maybe like Mardu Grease Fang and stuff like that's going to reanimate cards from the graveyard. But a lot of times, Graveyard Trespasser is just going to be this big threat that your opponent's going to have a difficult time dealing with because of Ward. But it's also a 3/3 or a 4/4, and just like Bonecrusher Giant, that is a very, very quick clock. But an important part of it, and probably really, really an integral part to this deck, not just the graveyard disruption, not that it is a quick clock that requires your opponent to devote a lot of resources to kill it. It is the life gain, and it is such a marginal effect. But if you can gain 4 or 5 life with one Graveyard Trespasser, and against aggressive decks where you've already killed a bunch of their cards and they're going to be in the graveyard, so you will gain that life, it's just exactly what you need when you cast it. And so that's what Graveyard Trespasser kind of takes the role of more of a finisher in this deck. That can come down on turn 3 and start gaining you life, because that's what it's there for. It is there to help sustain you early game, and then it can just, the dealing to it doesn't also gain you life, it drains life. So it also, you're attacking with a 4/4 that already dealt 3 damage, right? And that is so much. And so it's very, very quick, and it works really, really well with Fable of the Mirror Breaker, which we'll get to. So Fable, we all know what this does. So it creates a 2/2 Shaman, which, can give you treasure to this deck is very, very mana heavy. So anytime you can get treasure to, maybe get Nicol Bolas Dragon God out a turn earlier, or to be able to flip Nicol Bolas the Ravager, right? You're just gonna use that mana very, very often. So I mean, what deck doesn't? What well-designed deck isn't going to use a mana? So that's good, like always. And then you get to loot away 2 cards from your hand to draw 2 new cards. And as I said before, with the blood, looting is very, very powerful in control decks, because you really, really want to get to the mid to late game, and the best way to do that is get rid of the cards in your hand that are currently doing nothing to help you out in the situation at hand. So it's good there. And then the 2/2, it's another body again, so that's good as a defense against other aggro decks. But Reflection of Kiki-Jiki works really, really well with Graveyard Trespasser and Bloodtithe Harvester too. Like, you can get more removal with that. But with Graveyard Trespasser, again, if you can animate it on the Graveyard Glutton when it's a 4/4, now you are attacking with 2 4/4s, and if there's lots of cards in the graveyard, you can drain for 4. And it's just so good with Graveyard Glutton, because you're just getting this really, really big thing out of nowhere. It also works well with Bonecrusher Giant, obviously, in the 4/3 and 4/4. What's really the big difference? But like, these are both in here, or become more powerful. They're in here regardless, but they become that much more powerful because of the combination of Reflection of Kiki-Jiki. And then we kind of have Chandra, Nicol Bolas, and Nicol Bolas. And these are all, I won't go into a lot of specifics of why these are good, but these are just planeswalkers that can remove creatures, your opponent's hand, or, slow incremental card advantage with Nicol Bolas and Chandra, right? Well, and Nicol Bolas the Artisan. And that's just what they're there for. You're there to cast them, kill your opponent's creatures, or disrupt their hands somehow, and then you're gonna be slowly drawing more cards over time, and that you're gonna be able to overwhelm your opponent with card advantage. So the entire game plan is to try and live long enough where you can cast and protect these planeswalkers, so that your opponent can't then ever win. right? You're going to be drawing more removal, more disruption, and maybe even more planeswalkers, and you want to eventually snowball your way to victory. And with all that being said, let's go play some games and see if we can make that happen. Alright, this hand doesn't look particularly great because we need another land before we can cast a Graveyard Trespasser, and then 2 more for Dragon God. But I think the 2 Thoughtseizes can potentially save us here, so that's what we'll do. And then maybe we'll just have the time to, you know, live. If we can discard the Tenacious Underdog here and then exile with the Graveyard Trespasser, that would be really wonderful. Let's Thoughtseize and hope we draw another card. Murderous Rider. Let's get rid of Vraska. If we could... If our opponent goes turn 5 Elder Gargaroth and we do that, we'll be in a pretty fine spot. And then we can Nicol Bolas it, but we'll have to wait to see what happens. Let's do that now. And then we'll Fable here. Our opponent missed the land drop. And now hopefully we'll be able to find our lands. Ooh. Okay. That's gonna be really good here. Yeah, so now I kind of want to get rid of those 2 things. Not getting a land there was very bad. Very bad. Elder Gargaroth, yep. We'll double block here. Okay. Let's Heartless Act the Elder Gargaroth. We can play the Bloodtithe Harvester. No attacks. Our opponent has 3 cards in hand, which isn't great, but not sure what we should do there. Opponent's probably gonna Fatal Push something, yeah. Paradise Druid? Ouch. I don't know what I should do. If we should just destroy it or not. Or a permanent they control. Our opponent could have chose land and did not, which is interesting. We're happy about that. Maybe our opponent does not know that a land can be exiled. And sometimes that happens. Graveyard Trespasser? Okay. I wonder what our opponent's gonna do here.
I have other plans.
Huh. So let's kill an Elder Gargaroth here. We can Bonecrusher and a Fable. Yeah, I think we probably want to... Do we want to kill the Trespasser now and get rid of the Nicol Bolas? Probably. It just ensures that nothing... Not nothing bad, but less bad stuff can happen. Now we can trade here. We'll get rid of this. We'll wait to do anything. We can animate the Hive of the Eye Tyrant to block if our opponent attacks. Which we'll do. Now we can blood away and find something we need. Alright, that's fine. Beautiful. We're at 6, but I don't hate what we're doing right now. Let's get rid of Thoughtseize. Huh. Let's get rid of that. Our opponent's gonna kill that. I don't hate playing the land because we can potentially animate the Hive if we need to. And we can always loot away if we draw something here. Yeah, so let's loot away that. Fatal Push is okay, maybe? Would really like a Graveyard Trespasser, but we're mostly fine. Heartless Act, okay. GG. Alright, we'll keep this hand. Alright, maybe I shouldn't have kept this hand. But we have all of our mana, multiple of it, and if our opponent is an aggressive deck, it's very, very good. And I think in best of one, sometimes it's worth the gamble to see what your opponent's doing. Let's do that. Alright, oh, our opponent is an aggressive deck. We can Fatal Push it now. That's really good for us. I mean, our opponent could still win, but at least we're able to... If our opponent was a control deck and didn't do anything that turn, that would have been really, really bad for us. Oh, that Thoughtseize, though, getting rid of the Fable, not great. That's good, because now we get to blood away one of our lands. No idea what's going on here. So let's see. Oh, this isn't... So our opponent is going to be upset because we're going to sacrifice the blood in response to Brazen Borrower. And it's going to counter the entire card. So now our opponent won't even get that. Get it. Right? I may have missed the land drop too. But our opponent would have only lost one Brazen Borrower, but now lost both. Ruin Crab? Okay. I don't want to minus Chandra because I don't want to put her down to one loyalty and make her very vulnerable. And I don't think we're going to get milled out by the crab or milled out by our opponent if Chandra lives a couple turns. So that's what we'll do. We'll keep the Watery Grave in hand. And now we'll destroy target creature with no counters on it, which is the Soaring Thought Thief. Thoughtseize, we have a land. Beautiful. GG. Okay, our opponent is Hmm. Alright, now I have to think. They're in a life gain deck. I kind of always like Xander's Lounging turn 1. But if we map out our turns, we can Swamp, Thoughtseize. Next turn, use our Swamp and Mountain to cast Bloodtithe Harvester. And then the following turn, we still can Heartless Act and Fatal Push. And that seems like a really, really good way to do everything. Let's get rid of Bishop here. And it still allows us to draw to Nicol Bolas on turn 4. So we're not really postponing anything too terrible. Resplendent Angel, okay. That, and let's get rid of Resplendent Angel right now. And I won't attack. Maybe I should. I don't think so. Red or blue? Our opponent has a land in Lyra. We can't kill Lyra yet. But we can Fatal Push Giada. Harvester. And attack with Nicol Bolas. And now, if our opponent doesn't draw a Collected Company, we're in a pretty good spot. If our opponent does draw a Collected Company, and maybe we should have been attacking with the Bloodtithe Harvester. Okay, there's the Collected Company. It is now a game. Alright. A lot of life, but we don't mind life. We mind really, really powerful permanents. Hmm. Interesting. Maybe we want to start... but I think... I don't want our opponent to double block, because I think we need the Harvesters. And we're also not putting a lot of pressure on our opponent either. because they get to gain so much life. I don't know if maybe I should have thought seized there. My thinking is I probably want to get rid of. There's just a lot of cards we would have wanted to taken out there. And I think we kind of really want lands. So if we do that to kill the Valkyrie. And get rid of it. Our opponent's still gaining a lot of life, but we're getting there. Like, I think they have to start chumping with a Lunarch veteran. Because our board is just so big, right? Giada. Okay. Hmm. Maybe I should have done the blood. First, or activated Bloodtithe Harvester, or even attacked. Maybe I should have done the math more clear. That may have been able to force blocks. Our opponent can double block the Nicol Bolas in the air. But, like, I think we're very happy with this. Because, again, now our opponent has less Lunar triggers. So they're gaining not a lot of life, and we can still kill the Lyra. Because of this. Right? GG. Well, thank you for watching me play some Grixis Control and Explore. This deck is great. It's fun. Nicol Bolas is one of my favorite cards of all time. So anytime I can play a deck that features him, I'm very happy with it. This deck is something I'd recommend if it fits your play style. It requires a certain amount of, planning a little bit and very, very careful consideration of how to navigate your turns and to really thinking about the worst your opponent can do. And that's really, really fun sometimes, but definitely not for everyone. And I'm also very, very excited because this week we're getting a lot more Explorer cards in the Explorer Anthology on Arena. And they just announced some cool things, and I'm really looking forward to this format becoming as close to Pioneer as it can be. With all that being said, if you haven't already, you should totally like, comment, or subscribe. Great ways to help support me. You can also watch me stream live at twitch.tv/thenerdysteve, where, again, I'm trying to go for top 100 Mythic in Constructed and Limited, and we're having problems with one of them. But also, in addition to that, I hope you have a wonderful morning, evening, or afternoon, wherever you are, and thanks for watching. Bye.